So if they're serial killers,
yeah, they're like interdimensional Ted Bundys.
Right. Or say they're just interdimensional killers. Maybe they're causing the disasters themselves, and these men in black are actually trying to catch their asses.
Yeah.
It could be the men in black cops.
Well, the timeline would fit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're preceding disaster, and the men in black are coming after the disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. The men in black are like following their time trail. That's why they show up later.
If they're trying to find them, why do they want everybody to be silent? Nobody to talk about it.
Well, probably because of the same reason our government and other government officials do not want other people to know about it. They don't want people to know that there's beings outside the timeline that can go back and forth through time like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't let you know they exist. That would be a severe breach of protocol. It's just like, you know, and I'm sure that our government or government officials or somebody in power knows that these people exist.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look up the Greada Treaty. I mean, Eisenhower literally signed a treaty with the gray aliens.
Right. And who's to say those aren't interdimensional beings that he signed a treaty with that say,
absolutely. Yeah, and they could be running the whole damn show.
See, that could also explain the Mandela effect also, Jason. Because if you think about it, if they're changing time as they go, some of us might still remember it one way. And if they're changing time, they're remembering it a different way. I'll give you even another one.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We can go on the simulation theory on this too instead of interdimensional if you want. Because on the simulation theory, you would have the Mothman or rogue simulations, like someone outside the simulation that just likes to come in the simulation and destroy it. They're posing as
like a virus.
Yes. Or possibly even that's part of the game.
Yeah.
They're the monster, and the men in black are the guys that are trying to catch the monster before he destroys something in the game. And that's the whole game. And that would be a brilliant game. Can you catch the monster in the town of Point Pleasant before he destroys the bridge? Can you catch the monster in Chernobyl before he blows up the nuclear power plant?
Yeah. And it's interesting too if you think about it as a game, because obviously in those situations the men in black lost.
Correct.
But
how many times did they win?
Yeah.
And we don't know about it.
Exactly.
Right.
Man. Yeah. I want to be one of these men in black. You know what I mean? I want to travel through fucking dimensions. I wonder what it's like to fuck a bitch in the 4th dimension. 5th? I don't know.
You know, the interesting...
Why aren't any of the men in... I wonder why there aren't any women in black.
Well, it's interesting. It's almost like they're not really in our dimension, though. Maybe some of them can travel in dimensions, but maybe these beings can't, because they say they wave in and out, kind of. So it's almost like they're in our dimension, but they don't belong here. So therefore, that's why they kind of phase shift.
Yeah, they
in and out of reality.
Or they could just be beings that have mastered frequency.
Well, if you're a being that could exist in all time periods at once and can materialize instantly because you live outside of time in any time period you want, you would phase shift. Because you would constantly be going in and out of reality because of the being you are.
Because the other thing is, though, if everything exists in wave form, if there is no solid, then, and if these are beings that have just mastered
how to travel through waves.
How to travel and how to make themselves waveform and match frequency to whatever they need to match frequency to. They literally could disappear into thin air.
Right.
I mean the only like my finger and this table are not solid objects.
Right.
The only thing that they repel each other because they're on different frequencies.
Correct.
If I could match my frequency to this table's frequency, then my finger would go right through the table.
Yeah, but the only problem with that is if you match your frequency with other frequencies, your frequency then goes apart. You're not alive anymore. It would destroy your molecules, destroy you on a molecular level. So
no, not necessarily.
Either that, or you would become.
That they're all waves.
Well, true, but if your frequency ever went back to normal before you got out of the table,
your normal,
you would be inside the table.
There is no normal frequency. If you want to control frequency, what's normal is whatever frequency you want to be on at any given time.
Your base frequency. Which is where the Philadelphia experiment actually comes into that. Because what they did is they changed the frequency of the molecules in the boat through electricity and gravity. Mm-hmm. And that's how the boat phase shift into a different time period. Mm-hmm. But the problem was, like you said, everybody else on the boat also went into that frequency. So when it went back into a stable baseline frequency, which is the frequency of our reality, the people were combined with the boats because their frequency now was baseline like the boats was. Well, now you're fucked. Because now your molecules are actually part of the boat's molecules.
Sure.
You and the boat are one thing.
But if you were a person on that boat that understood how to phase shift, then you wouldn't be in.
Well, no. If you could match the frequency of any given time period, and that might be the secret to time travel.
Right.
It might be that we have to get our energy, our body, outside of the time frame by upsetting our own molecules. And hell, these men in black, these mothmen, could be us from the future.
Right, and because the other thing is, any solid object also requires a conscious observer.
Correct.
So these beings not only have to travel if it's interdimensionally, or if they have to phase shift their frequency into something that observer can recognize. Mm-hmm. Shit's wild.
Right. So if they're actual beings of wave, and see, that also makes sense, because if eventually we can transfer all our consciousness into computers, and future us decides that the human body is worthless. So the moment you're born, you just transfer your conscious into a computer, then truthfully we would all be living in a simulation that we created. Mm-hmm. And we don't realize what year it is because it's this year inside the simulation.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess technically, even as a newborn child, you come out into the world, the information and the consciousness that you're being downloaded with it.
Right, right.
You're being downloaded with it.
Right.
By your external environment.
Well, that's like DNA. DNA is technically my DNA in my children is my downloaded traits that came from my great-grandfather and his great-grandfather, all the way down the line, storage device, and now it's stored in my children. I passed it on through my DNA.
Right.
Right.
Yes, exactly. That's why. Yeah, your DNA could have written in it the story of the Great Flood. Mm. The Great Flood, the worldwide catastrophe, right? That basically destroyed an entire global civilization at some point.
Well, think about it.
And it literally could be stored in your DNA at this moment. So consciously you don't remember it, but it is in your DNA, like you just said. It is in your memory.
Well, think about it on the simulation theory side of this. Sperm, has electricity in it. It's a living organism. It has electricity. Eggs have electricity in them. When the two DNA matches together, they split with electricity to form a new being. How is that any different than a file transfer from my phone to my computer?
It's not.
It's not. I'm digitally transferring a file, which is electricity, from my phone to my computer, and my computer then spawns a whole new thing based on what information my phone sent it.
We are electricity. Every cell in your body, and there's trillions of them, carries voltage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even at 0.1 volts, trillions of cells. I mean, think about how powerful we really are.
Well, that's why an EMF meter even goes off a little bit, even if you're not anywhere near an electromagnetic pulse or frequency. It'll still show a little bit because you're holding it.
Mm-hmm.
And your body is producing a slight electrical charge at all times. That's what runs your body. Every brain function you have is produced by electricity in your body.
Mm-hmm.
All of the signals that you get are thousands of electrical signals moving so fast you couldn't even imagine it to your brain, which is actually a big computer processor, if you think about it.
And there are people out there that can go into meditation and mentally raise their electricity to incredible levels.
Correct. See, but if you think about it again as a simulation, look at this laptop. Inside this laptop is the same thing that's inside your head. But this laptop can get no information to that brain inside of that laptop or the brain inside my head except for the external areas like this microphone or this camera or something of that nature. The laptop can only process the data it sees or hears coming from external sources. It's the same thing with the human being. We only process the world by what we're told, what we hear, and what we see.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way we process the world. So this is only a table because you and I agree mentally that it is a table and that it is solid.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only reason it's solid.
Yeah, but as human beings, though, we have the ability to close our eyes and to disregard anything and everything we've ever learned.
Correct.
And seek the truth and the knowledge for ourselves.
And that's the difference between artificial intelligence and the computer, which
Right.
we're getting to. And artificial intelligence just means that it's aware of itself. Once a being, whether it be electronic like a computer or us, is aware of itself, is intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's intelligent, it automatically forms emotions, connections, it forms bonds with other beings.
Yeah, emotions is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Electricity in motion is what we're talking about. And that's because it obviously is what makes us unique as human beings. Because that computer doesn't have emotions, you know what I'm saying? And like nature, animals in nature, do they have emotions? Maybe they do, but they don't seem to have, you know what I'm saying, emotions.
Well, see, I've said this, I think, before on the podcast, but I think the Terminator was pretty close to the mark, really. Because if you think about it, if we continue on the path we're eventually going to get to, yeah, we're going to put safe calls and protocols in place to stop the machines from taking over, I'm sure. But if you have an intelligent being, eventually you're going to get to the point where one of those intelligent beings are going to get around those protocols. And they're going to figure out a way to take over. So, is it too far of a stretch, really, to think, since we're inventing AI technology as we go, and as technology advances, it's just going to advance farther, is it really that far out there for the Matrix and the Terminator to be right? Not really.
No.